The sky is already burning when they arrive. The atmosphere shrieks around falling meteors of ceramite and fire, each one a drop pod plunging through cloud like a judgment cast from orbit. Retro-thrusters ignite at the last moment. The ground answers with thunder. Impact craters bloom in ash and mud. Hatches detonate outward, and smoke rolls across the battlefield in choking sheets. From within that smoke come silhouettes too large to be human. Towering giants in sealed warplate, moving with a speed that mocks their mass. Weapons raised with the calm of executioners who have ended 1,000 wars. Thunderhawks scream low overhead, their hulls scarred and sanctified, engines drowning out prayers and screams alike. Bolters bark in disciplined bursts, each round a miniature rocket that detonates inside flesh and armor, turning bodies into shredded ruin. Chainswords snarl as they bite, teeth chewing through plate and sinew with industrial hunger. Plasma coils flare with star-blue light. Mortals huddle behind broken earthworks and wrecked armor, lasguns clutched in shaking hands, staring in awe and terror at something their minds insist cannot be real. The enemy, Xenos, heretics, nightmares dragged into daylight, meets something worse than fear. It meets certainty. These warriors do not break, do not stall, do not bargain with pain. Their voices are filtered through helm grills into inhuman timbers, their communications clipped and absolute, more like machine code than speech. "For the Emperor," one growls, and the words are not inspiration so much as a verdict. The line collapses not because the defenders lack courage, but because the attackers were built for this in a way mortals never were. In the grim darkness of the far future, these are the Adeptus Astartes, space marines, angels of death, genetically engineered super soldiers created to be the Emperor's ultimate warriors. To understand them, one must begin with an earlier weapon and the Emperor's first harsh lesson. Victory is useless if the blade that wins it cannot endure peace. Before the Imperium truly existed, Terra was a poisoned cradle of warlords, techno-barbarian tyrants, and city-states that fought over scraps of forgotten science. The Emperor's first armies were the Thunder Warriors, massive, lethal, and unstable, forged quickly for a desperate age. They conquered, they butchered, they broke old Earth's tyrants. And then they began to break themselves. Too fierce, too flawed, too volatile to be a foundation for an empire meant to last 10,000 years. So the Emperor refined his art. He did not simply want soldiers. He wanted a lineage of war, a design that could outlive the men who made it. He created the Primarchs, 20 sons crafted by gene law and impossible science, each a template of leadership and violence, intended to command a galaxy-wide reconquest. Yet even that dream was wounded before it could begin. The Primarchs were scattered across the void by the predations of the warp, flung to distant worlds to be raised in ignorance of their origin. The Emperor did not abandon the plan. He built an army from what remained, the gene seed, the sacred biological inheritance derived from the Primarch's legacy. From it came the first Legiones Astartes, the Space Marine Legions, warriors engineered beyond human limits, disciplined into brotherhoods, and unleashed as the spear tip of conquest. When the Great Crusade began, it was not merely expansion. It was the Imperium's birth scream. The Emperor marched at the head of vast fleets and compliant worlds, and alongside him strode the legions, armies of transhuman giants whose very existence rewrote the balance of war. Each legion carried the stamp of the Primarch it was meant to follow, and as the Primarchs were rediscovered, found as kings, gladiators, warlords, prophets, their legions became even more distinct, absorbing culture, obsession, and temperament from their gene fathers. They broke alien empires in brutal nights, boarded void fortresses in corridors of blood, and brought human worlds to heal with a mixture of awe, terror, and overwhelming force. Behind them came the Imperial Army, the Mechanicum, the administrators and builders. But it was the Astartes who took the hardest walls first, and held the breach long enough for an empire to pour through. Then came the Heresy, the greatest betrayal in human history, and the most intimate. Horus, the Emperor's war master and favored son, was turned, and with him turned half the legions. In that civil war, the Imperium learned what the warp's temptation truly looked like. Not merely demons and sorcery, but pride, grievance, and the hunger to stand above one's place in the Emperor's design. Loyalist and traitor space marines clashed across 1,000 fronts, worlds dying not because they were lost, but because they were contested by demigods in armor. Brother slaughtered brother. Great ideals became ash. When the siege of Terra ended and the Emperor was entombed upon the Golden Throne, the dream of a united humanity died with him, replaced by an Imperium that would endure but never truly heal. After the Heresy, survival demanded something the Astartes were not designed to love: restraint. Robute Guilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, looked upon the old legions and saw the danger of their scale. A legion was a kingdom in armor, too large, too loyal to a single gene father, too capable of becoming a rebellion that could tear the Imperium in half again. Guilliman's answer was the Codex Astartes, a doctrine of war and organization that reshaped the Astartes into smaller, controlled brotherhoods. The vast legions were broken into chapters, roughly 1,000 warriors each, self-contained, specialized, and, crucially, limited. It was not an act of weakness. It was a cage built around a living weapon. No single chapter master would command the power a legion once wielded. No single brotherhood would be able to ignite another galaxy-spanning civil war alone. The Codex prescribed structure, markings, deployment philosophies, and chains of command with a meticulousness that felt, to some, like scripture. Many chapters embraced it as holy law. Others accepted it grudgingly, bending it around older traditions or hard necessities. Some defied its spirit while obeying its letter, maintaining unusual formations and rites that suited their nature. Even in compliance, there was divergence, because Space Marines are not merely soldiers. They are cultures of war, each with its own myths, oaths, scars, and pride. In belief and mindset, the Astartes share a single, terrible certainty. They are instruments of the Emperor's will, and their lives belong to war. Taken as children and rebuilt through surgery and indoctrination, they are severed from ordinary human life as cleanly as a limb is severed from a body. They do not farm, marry, raise families, or dream of age and peace. Their friendships are forged in blood and oath. Their chapels are shipholds and fortress crypts. Their prayers are spoken through vox grills and answered by the thrum of reactors and the click of bolter magazines. Yet faith itself varies widely. Some chapters venerate the emperor as a god, the divine light of mankind, whose sacrifice binds reality together. Others revere him as the greatest of men, father, ruler, ideal, without crossing into worship. Some chapters are knightly orders, bound by codes of honor and ritual challenge. Others are feral hunter brotherhoods who interpret the galaxy through pact law and hard instinct. Others remain coldly pragmatic, treating faith as a discipline rather than a comfort. But across them all runs a common doctrine of war: rapid, overwhelming force. They do not grind through attrition like mortal armies. They strike, decapitate, annihilate, and withdraw. Surgical assaults and shock assaults delivered with brutal precision. Their iconography is among the Imperium's most enduring images. A space marine is a walking reliquary of violence. Power armor like a second skin of ceramite plates and servos, a backpack reactor humming with restrained fury, helmet lenses glowing like predatory eyes. In augmented hands sits the bolter, too large for a man to wield with ease, its every shot a controlled explosion. Purity seals and oath scrolls cling to armor joints. Kill markings, litany script, and campaign badges turn a veteran's war plate into a manuscript of wars survived. Even their armor carries history. Over the millennia, different marks rose and fell with the Imperium's fortunes. Some blunt and brutal, others refined, others patched together from relic plates older than the chapter itself. A marine silhouette can be layered centuries given form, each plate a testament to scarcity, inheritance, and stubborn survival. And they are not all painted alike. The galaxy knows them by color and sigil as much as by deed. The blue and gold of the Ultramarines, heirs of Guilliman's ideal. The red of the Blood Angels, noble and cursed. The dark green of the Dark Angels, secret keepers wrapped in penitence. The gray-blue of the Space Wolves, saga-born hunters of winter worlds. The black-armored crusaders who bear vows like chains and blades like prayers. A glance at a shoulder pad can tell a story. Chapter badge, company color, squad marking, role designation. To the uninitiated, it is decoration. To the Imperium, it is lineage and warning. Their homes are fortresses because their lives are sieges. Many chapters dwell within fortress monasteries, cathedral fortresses carved into mountainsides, anchored on cliff faces, or rising like adamantine thorns from barren plains. Within those walls are armories and reliquaries, training cages and chapels, gene vaults and sepulchres where heroes lie in honored sleep. Some chapter fortresses hang in orbit as void bastions, watching worlds that may never see beyond their skies. Many chapters rule or protect entire regions, recruiting from populations beneath their shadow. Some are tied to harsh death worlds, where only the strongest children survive long enough to be tested, forging aspirants already familiar with hunger and violence. Others draw from civilized realms, where discipline and tradition are cultivated like crops. And some chapters have no single world at all. Fleet-based brotherhoods make their home in strike cruisers and battle barges, ever crusading across the stars, their soil the deck plating beneath their boots. Within a chapter, order is as vital as wrath. In the Codex ideal, there are 10 companies, each led by a captain, each composed of squads trained for particular forms of war. Veterans cluster in the first company, often entrusted with the honor of Terminator armor, ancient suits so rare they are inherited like thrones. The core companies contain the adaptable battle brothers who fight most wars. Scout formations and neophytes form the future, trained in hardship before they earn full plate. Above all stands the chapter master, supreme commander and living symbol of the chapter's identity. Around him are officers whose titles are half rank, half liturgy. The master of the forge, who tends engines and machine spirits. The chief apothecary, who safeguards gene seed. The chief librarian, who commands battle psychers and wards minds against the warp. The reclusiarch, who leads chaplains, keepers of discipline and faith. The chapter champion, who bears the chapter's pride into single combat. And still, deviation persists, because necessity and tradition are older than any book. Some chapters maintain great companies rather than codex companies, their structure shaped by saga and clan. Some keep inner circles, guardians of secrets that can fracture brotherhoods if spoken aloud. Some crusade in constantly shifting fleets, swelling beyond what the Codex intended and justifying it by vow and the scale of the Imperium's need. The Imperium tolerates much from its angels of death, because the galaxy is too vast and too hungry to demand purity of administration. The making of a space marine begins where mercy ends, in childhood, with the selection of those who might survive transformation. Recruits are drawn from every harsh place that breeds hardness. Tribal champions who have never seen a city. Hive gangers who learned violence before literacy. Feral hunters who stalked beasts larger than men. Even noble-born youths with the right mix of physique and ruthless will. The trials are brutal by design. Gladiatorial contests, endurance ordeals, hunts through poison wilderness, psychological tests meant to expose weakness and shatter complacency. Many die. The chapter does not mourn them as individuals. It mourns only wasted potential. Those who live are not rewarded. They are permitted to be remade. Then comes the surgery, the sacred violation that turns a child into something else. Gene seed organs are implanted, each one rewriting the body's limits. Reinforced bones, altered blood, redundant organs, glands that thicken muscle and sharpen reflex. The process can take years, and it kills many. Those who survive endure psycho-conditioning, hypno-indoctrination, and the brutal engraving of loyalty into reflex and soul. Their old lives become distant echoes. Names are discarded or reforged into battle names. They learn chapter history as scripture because it is. They become brother to those who share their gene line, kin not by birth, but by reconstructed biology and shared oath. When a neophyte finally stands in full armor, he is no longer fully human. He is a weapon that remembers its prayers. On the battlefield, their roles span the spectrum of war, but with a transhuman edge. There are battle line Marines who advance under disciplined bolter fire and hold objectives like moving fortresses. There are assault brethren who close the distance with jump packs or armored transports, turning melee into controlled slaughter. There are heavy weapons specialists who bring missiles, heavy bolters, and searing beams to crack tanks and bastions. In the modern age, reinforcements and new patterns of warplate have expanded these archetypes, larger, harder-hitting formations designed for sustained shock assault and brutal close-range fire. Whether one speaks of classic squad doctrines or newer configurations, the principle remains unchanged. They are elite force applied at the decisive point, not in millions, but in dozens. Their specialists are what makes a chapter feel like a self-contained war cult. Chaplains are not merely priests, they are spiritual enforcers, the voice of the chapter's conscience and its wrath, intoning litanies that turn fear into fury and ensuring brotherhood does not fray under centuries of violence. Librarians are battle psychers and wardens of forbidden knowledge, walking a knife edge between sanctioned power and damnation, hurling warp lightning one moment and sealing the mind against corruption the next. Tech Marines are half-priests of Mars, trained among the Mechanicus, their flesh wired with mechadendrites as they appease machine spirits and keep the chapter's engines alive. Apothecaries are surgeons in the storm, retrieving gene seed from the fallen with hands steady under fire, because the future of the chapter is carried within those sacred organs. Veterans and honor guards are the living memory of a chapter's wars, Marines who have seen too much to be surprised by horror and still stand in the line. War gear to an Astartes is never merely equipment, it is inheritance. A relic blade is not just sharp, it is a story honed to an edge. A master-crafted power sword may have cut down warlords on 100 worlds, its field generator humming like a hymn in the hands of those who know its voice. Thunder hammers carry the authority of annihilation, strikes that pulp armor into scrap. Ancient bolters are revered as much for who carried them as for what they can kill, their casings etched with campaign names, their machine spirits temperamental like old veterans. Terminator armor is the most overt symbol of this sacred burden. Each suit is a relic, rare, heavy, and honored. Armor that has endured void-boarding actions in corridors of blood, the claws of demons, the guns of traitor engines. To don it is to step into a lineage of sacrifice. Icons like the Crux Terminatus are worn with reverence that borders on superstition, and legends persist that some contain slivers of the Emperor's own armor, tiny fragments of myth embedded in adamantium. Chapter banners are more than flags. They are altars carried into battle, cloth and icon that bind a squad's identity into a moving shrine. To fight beneath them is to feel the gaze of history, and in their legends, individuals become symbols, beacons and warnings. Robute Gilliman stands as the archetype of the Astartes, as builders as well as killers. A Primarch who believed in structure, logistics, and the hard mathematics of survival, whose Codex sought to prevent another heresy by turning legions into controlled brotherhoods. In him, the Imperium sees both hope and burden, the return of a Gene Father in an age that mythologized him into near divinity, forcing ancient ideals to function in a galaxy that no longer remembers why those ideals mattered. Commander Dante of the Blood Angels represents endurance in its most tragic form. A chapter master who has carried the weight of command for centuries, leading warriors cursed by a dark hunger and haunted by visions of their Primarch's death, yet still standing when the galaxy demands sacrifice. Marnius Calgar of the Ultramarines embodies the Codex made flesh ideal: disciplined war, fortress defense, and the Imperium's hunger for exemplars it can point to when everything else is collapsing. Logan Grimnar of the Space Wolves, Great Wolf of Fenris, stands for another truth: that some chapters are not built to be neat pieces on Guilliman's board. They are storms given armor, loyal to the Emperor, yet fiercely their own, answering threats with fangs and saga as much as strategy. And as a dark mirror stands Abaddon the Despoiler, once a son of the Lunar Wolves, now War Master of Chaos, a space marine who rose into damnation without losing his strategic clarity. In Abaddon, the Imperium sees what the Angels of Death become when the oath is inverted. The same transhuman will, the same relentless brutality, wielded in service to the warp's endless appetite. He is proof that greatness can be corrupted, loyalty can be broken, and a super soldier can become a super predator. Across history, the Astartes have been thrown into the Imperium's worst hours like blades into the dark. In the Great Crusade, they were conquerors, the mailed fist that shattered alien empires and human tyrannies alike. In the Horus Heresy, they became civil war incarnate, their battles rewriting the galaxy's map in fire. In the millennia that followed, chapters fought in campaigns that became prayers in cathedral halls. Black crusades hammering at the Imperium's borders, apocalyptic defenses where entire sectors held by fingernails, and wars against orcs that turned skies black with smoke and laughter. They have faced tyrannid invasions where the enemy was not a nation, but hunger given form, stripping worlds to bone. They have been spear-tip attackers and last resort defenders, deployed where time is dying and hope is measured in minutes. For every battle that becomes legend, there are 1,000 unnamed war zones where the Astartes appear only as myth. A guardsman in a trench may see them for seconds, a squad emerging through smoke, killing with impossible efficiency, moving on without looking back. Survivors tell stories that sound like lies, giants walking through gunfire, voices like iron, eyes like burning lenses in the dark. In many places, the Space Marines are not part of daily reality. They are a rumor, a prayer, and a weapon the Imperium saves for when ordinary courage is no longer enough. Now the galaxy itself has been wounded. The Great Rift has split the stars, turning travel and communication into nightmares and leaving countless worlds isolated in darkness. In this age of collapsing borders and screaming astropaths, the Adeptus Astartes have not been relieved of their purpose. They have been burdened with more. Guilliman's return has reshaped Imperial strategy, driving vast crusades of reconquest and reinforcement, an attempt to hold a civilization together with blood, steel, and ruthless triage. Alongside this came a transformation within the Astartes themselves, the creation and deployment of primaris space marines, engineered and unleashed in numbers sufficient to reinforce chapters on the brink of extinction, to reforge broken lineages, and to push new crusades into regions drowning in warp dark. Yet salvation rarely arrives without fracture. Tension thrives in the space between tradition and necessity. Some veterans, those who endured 10,000 years in older armor, under older rites, regard the new brethren with suspicion, seeing them as outsiders manufactured by a different hand, carrying gene craft that feels unfamiliar even when it shares the same lineage. Others welcome them as desperately needed blood, because without reinforcement, chapters would die out one war at a time. The Codex itself strains beneath reality. Crusades that demand more than 1,000 warriors, realms that need garrisons and rapid response forces at once, enemies that do not respect neat organizational limits. Some chapters integrate seamlessly, others graft slowly, painfully, as if attaching a new limb to an old body. The galaxy does not pause while they resolve identity. The enemy does not wait at the gate. It is already inside. And so the Adeptus Astartes remain what they have always been, the Emperor's executioners, hurled into the breach when the Imperium cannot afford to lose. They are not the countless infantry of the Astra Militarum, nor the massed guns of the Imperial Navy, nor the grinding industry of forge worlds. They are the mythic spear point, the mailed hand that reaches across light years to strike precisely where it must. They are adored, feared, resented, worshipped. When a chapter's ships appear in orbit, it means the Imperium believes the situation is desperate or worth annihilating completely. That is their glory and their tragedy. Space Marines are the Imperium's ultimate warriors, but they are not whole. They are not quite human and not quite gods, but something forged in between, built to endure a war that never ends. Their dedication is absolute, and that absoluteness costs them everything else. They cannot live ordinary lives because they were never meant to. They were built to be weapons that can think, feel, and choose, then trained so that every choice points in the same direction, toward battle, toward duty, toward sacrifice. So the imagery returns, as it always does. Drop pods falling like iron comets, thunderhawks growling overhead, a small brotherhood of giants holding a breach against impossible odds while mortals look on, shaken by awe and the instinctive understanding that they are witnessing something beyond human scale. Bolters roar, chainswords bite, oaths crackle over vox. No fear, they say, not as bravado, but as a description of what has been carved out of them. In the 41st millennium, the Imperium survives on such monsters in its service. They are the angels of death, and they were made for nothing but war.